We are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Educational Innovation 360 Degrees Live Chat. I'm David Johnson of Transform Ed Consulting, and I'd like to give a shout out to my dear buddy, Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovation 360 Degrees, for allowing us to use her channel. Our guest tonight is Mr. Willie T. Burroughs. Willie T. Burroughs is Chief Operations Officer for the San Antonio Independent School District and has been a transformational leader in K-12 education for almost 20 years. As COO, Willie leads the Operations Services Division, which is comprised of more than 1,600 personnel. He is responsible for SAISD's food service, transportation, purchasing, and maintenance departments, the last of which includes rehabilitation and construction of more than 10 million square feet of educational and administrative office space. Willie holds Bachelor of Science and Master of Business Administration degrees. He was an ROTC student at Clemson University and was commissioned a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Signal Corps. He is a life member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and in his leisure time, he enjoys playing golf, running, reading, and spending time with his family. In 2021, Willie was recognized by 𝐷Mars.com as one of the top 50 Black professionals and entrepreneurs of Texas. Hello, Willie. Welcome.
Good evening, David. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So now we got to dig in and figure out what all these things are. What's DMars.com?
It's a publication that's in the Houston area. They promote a lot of businesses in general, but minority business in particular. And so I guess it was this year. It seems like it was last year, was recognized by them as one of the top 50 Black professionals in the state of Texas.
So did someone nominate you for that, or are you worldwide known?
I'd like to say I'm worldwide known, but I believe as a part of the process, as I understand it, someone did nominate me for.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations. I'm impressed, and I'm very happy to have you here. You have a big and important job. And all that comes to my mind is how when the pandemic struck in March 2020, all of a sudden everyone had to pivot, which is the key word everyone is saying these days,
right,
and make things work. And I recall, I think this was a quote from you, where you said, "We had planned to distribute computers to the students 5 years down the line, but we figured out how to do it today."
Yeah. Well, I won't take credit for that. Well, that's my esteemed colleague, Dr. Kenneth Thompson, that made that statement. But we're all a part of the team and the part of the process of being able to get it out to students, which is the main thing. Keeping the main thing, supporting our students. That's why we're here.
That's good. I'm impressed. Now you have a pedigree background with your Bachelor of Science from Clemson and then your MBA. Where did you obtain your MBA?
It was at Clemson as well.
Oh, is that right? So both your degrees come from Clemson. Great. Yeah. And tell us about your ROTC experience.
Well, the ROTC experience, it was great. I actually was enlisted in the South Carolina Army National Guard prior to joining the ROTC program at Clemson. I was it was my opportunity to pay for college. I was raised by a single parent grandmother who I recognized did not have the means to be able to send me to school. And so I saw that as my opportunity, joined the South Carolina Army National Guard. My brother was actually the person that I looked to, and he had already gone through basic and AIT. And so I was like, man, like this is pretty cool. So let me go do it. And so ended up in the ROTC program at Clemson with a 2-year scholarship, got commissioned in '92 as a signal officer.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, that leads to my next question. How did you get here?
Wow. Lots of twists and turns. So again, just stated, went to school at Clemson University, Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Engineering, as well as my commission in the Army, as well as an MBA. Actually started out in manufacturing. So spent the first 11 and a half years of my career in manufacturing, working for Cooper Industries. They had what was called their manufacturing training program. And so their goal was to maintain people with technical degrees in leadership, because what they were finding in the early 90s is that quite often you would have someone with an engineering degree, they go and get an MBA, and they would go off and go into HR or something else that really didn't have anything to do with their degree. And so they really wanted to retain people with those technical skills and those leadership roles. So as a part of that program, spent 11 and a half years, a lot of work with vertical integration of manufacturing processes. Ended up meeting someone in Chicago, Illinois. We were closing down the manufacturing facility there. We became very good friends, our families, and he actually helped me start up the operation in Roanoke, Virginia. Well, long story short, we became longtime friends, and he ended up in Houston ISD, working with Aramark, and asked me if I wanted to come and work with them. And I'm like, well, what's the opportunity? And so in 2002, the end of 2002, actually went to work with him in the Houston ISD account as an Aramark employee. And then in 2008, went to work directly for the district, had a number of leadership roles. In 2013, someone that I worked with in Houston said, "Hey, I just became COO in Dallas. You want to come work with me?" Like, what's the opportunity? And so anyways, ended up working in Dallas for 3.5 years, leading all of their facility maintenance. And in 2014, on my drive back from Houston to Dallas, I was looking to relocate and get with my family, us being one location. And I was like, man, why are there never any COO positions open? And I don't recommend that anyone does this, but there was just me and the deer on the road at the time. And so I was on the 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 website, and there was lo and behold, there was a COO position in San Antonio. And I applied for the position and have had the great fortune of being here. This starts my 5th year. Recruited or worked here now, my 5th year leading our operations division. And so that's how I got here.
Well, I am glad you're here. The topic for tonight is leadership, the human connection sport. So now I got to ask, how'd you get human connection sport, and why sport of all words?
Well, I think, one, human connection. So like everything occurs through human connections, through relationships. So any leader there, and I read a lot of John Maxwell. And so he talks about leadership is really just your ability to influence someone. And so there's all these different levels of leadership. And the first one being position. So if you're in a position, and that's the lowest level, because that's based on your title that someone is potentially following you. But everything else really revolves around you being able to influence. And so when you think about in the world of sports, like there's so many parallels between sports and leadership, and the ability to influence, to coach, to mentor. And so that's how it all came together. The human connections part of it being the sport.
Mm-hmm. So I take it you're a sports enthusiast.
Well, that's probably a stretch to say enthusiast. I do enjoy. I do enjoy, and I did participate in high school sports,
right?
And so enjoyed that. But now I watch it merely for the entertainment value of it.
Well, I'm still questioning that word sport. How does sport play in human connections?
Right. So, one, I think. I look at everything, and I think it was Simon Sinek, a book that I was reading, where it talked about like the game that you're playing. So like, what game are you playing? So anything you can create and make it a game. And so sports are obviously games. And so in the world of leadership, it's like, how do I make the proper human connections in order to win the game? And again, in one of Simon Sinek's books, he talks about the infinite game. And so there's not like a finality of it. It's like you're constantly moving and growing. And so as we look at an organization really is a living being, if you will. And so it has many parts, and you have people that are all a part of that. And so how do you connect with people? How do you make work fun? I'm at my office right now, Uh, and I spend, quite a bit of time at work. And I think most of us that have careers, whether you work for an organization or you have your own company, most of your waking hours are really working. And so it really should be fun. So when I think about sports is fun. My son, he loves sports, natural athlete. And so that's one of the things that he loves in life is being able to get out and connect with his friends. And so again, work, I look at it as a similar type situation of where you should enjoy where you work. And I have this saying that I borrowed. It's like, grow where you plant it. So it's like if you're not happy and finding some sort of fulfillment at your current place of employment, then you probably should think about maybe being somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with grow where you planted, and I would agree with you that if it seems like too much work, if it seems like work, then you might be in the wrong position. You might be better spending your time elsewhere. So then the approach you use is that work, you want to make work as much fun as possible.
Absolutely.
So if someone were to ask to which particular leadership approach you use, what would your succinct answer be?
Collaborative.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And in a true collaboration is such an exchange that it indeed would be fun.
Absolutely. And I guess to add to that, so no one of us is as smart as all of us. And so for me, the key is like the folks that are my current direct reports is they're experts, they're subject matter experts in their areas of responsibility. And so my responsibility as a leader is to support them. Like, what are the things that they need to do? How do I help them win every day?
Yeah. Of course, you've heard the expression, you hire good people and get out of their way.
Yep.
And the other one is you, instead of hiring people and telling them what to do, you hire people and have them tell you what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have three major topics here: your older brother, your first leadership role, and then building leadership capacity. Where shall we start?
Let's start with my older brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So my older brother, give a shout out to Willie Burroughs, Command Sergeant Major in the United States Army. My brother. And so one of the lessons I learned there was how to be a good follower. For a number of reasons. One, like there could be some physical pain if I didn't, properly follow. And so, but in all seriousness, though, like he really laid the pattern for me, like very early on, and being able to watch and see what he did. Command Sergeant Major, for those that are watching it may not know like what that means. I mean, that's one of the highest. It's at the top of the chain on the enlisted side in the military, and so. Very driven. My brother, those that know him, very quiet. So he's like a silent leader, but he gets the job done. And so really just watching him as we were growing up, participated in sports. So I always wanted to be like where my brother was. So we played I had the good fortune of playing with him. He's a couple years older than me, but we played varsity football together. So it was great. It was great to be able to see him perform and really lead and to really see the success that he's achieved in life is tremendous.
So what did you learn about leadership from him?
Well, I learned that action, so again, my brother, very quiet. And for those that know me, I'm like very quiet and introverted, but sometimes you got to get out of that. And so it's not always in what you say, but it's how you treat people, is the work that you do, like the work ethic. Growing up in South Carolina, again, like my brother, like we were like, kind of like thick as thieves, if you will. And so working, and in South Carolina during those days, it was like the primary income source was like farming. And so during the summer, like summer jobs for us was like working in tobacco. And so like we were very competitive. And so it's like older people that were working. And so my brother and I, as we were harvesting tobacco, like he could go, and so really just watching him as he worked. really demonstrating it. And so that was one of the things, be a person of action, being a person of integrity. Those are some of the key things that I learned.
And those are things you continue to apply to this day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's like I tell people, like, you may be smarter than I am, but you won't outwork me. you won't outwork me.
Just like you being at work right now, 7 o'clock.
Well, that's not necessarily always a badge of honor to like go long hours and all that. So I don't want anybody to get it twisted. There has to be a balance, but you also need to know like when you need to put in the effort, when the effort requires your effort, and when the effort requires that of your team.
You don't want to be carried out on your shield, in other words.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Well, then, what was your first leadership role then, and where you got to apply the things you learned from your brother?
I would say first leadership role. Okay, I'm trying to think whether or not use a work one or use just like a. Well, I think that one of the first one was as being a parent. Very early, young parent, married, in college, and really trying to figure all those things out, and really being the man. I asked my father-in-law to marry my wife, and it's like, okay. And then, she's graduated, I'm in school, we're working, struggling, parents wanting to provide assistance and stuff like that. I'm like, wait a second, I married you, I'm gonna take care of you. And so really like some of those hard lessons about, not necessarily pride, but, taking that responsibility. When you said that I do, it's like, okay, I need to do all of these things. I need to provide for you. And so having kids, really leading your kids and being, again, a person of integrity, work ethic, and really just being able to provide. So I would say that was one of my first leadership roles in
a personal sense. And then professionally, what was your first leadership role?
I would say, gosh, that was like so long ago. Yeah, because I co-opt, so there was. Let me use my co-op experience. So that really led me down a path of really solidifying that I wanted to be an industrial engineer. And so in that role, it was, I think one of the lessons learned was really about valuing people. Because as an industrial engineer, like usually when people saw you coming to the manufacturing floor, they like, oh my God, like here he comes. Because in the early 90s, it was all about time studies and, how many, pieces you should be producing and all of these things. And so like nobody ever wanted to see the industrial engineer on the manufacturing floor. But I built relationships. So as we talk about human connections, like part of what I did is I went out, I talked to people, I, took interest in their job. In fact, I often did a lot of the jobs that they did. And it's like, hey, can you show me how to do that? And so I sit down in the manufacturing seat, and so doing the work. And so that built a lot of credibility. Here it is, a guy, his tie, shirt and tie, walking on the manufacturing with his clipboard. It's like, I got so much mileage out of being able to connect with people that way that, it's paid off. And that's one of the things that I even do, even in my current role when it came to the district, having a meeting, doing my rounds with all of the teams. And there was a gentleman that did HVAC. And so like, the challenge was, well, come and ride with me. I was like, okay, like we're going to get a date and I'm come and ride with you and see what you're doing. And so time passed by, I didn't get a call. So I'm like, hey, are we going out or what? So so he was like totally shocked that, that would do that. It's like, right. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. Like now I know about like working, again, in tobacco.
You pick tobacco.
Oh yeah. So it's like, right. It's like, bring it on.
Well, we better jump to your next topic, building leadership capacity.
Yes. So where you want to go there?
You said journey from manager to executive, or journey. How about journey from picking tobacco to manager to executive?
Yeah, well, along the way, like there are different skills that you learn. So first of all, I think you got to lead yourself well, being disciplined about what you do and how you do it, being able to build a level of confidence in your leaders that, hey, this person can do the job. I think probably to some extent we're probably all guilty of, like, oh, I can do your job, like the boss, like I can do your job, until you get in the seat and it's like, oh wow, well that wasn't quite what I thought it was. And so from an entry level position, it's like really focusing on, like, just do it. You're the person that's contributing. How do I now build my skills to then be able to move to the next level? And it's a constant constant improvement, continuous improvement of being able to go from one level to the next one. And so again,
let's stay here for a minute.
Okay.
What is the difference between a manager and executive? One of the questions I always present to people when we talk about leadership is I ask the difference between a leader and a manager. So now we have executive in here. So what's the difference between a manager and an executive?
Well, I think in this case you probably use executive in exchange, because there's a difference. So like a manager is like you're given like a certain amount of, you're giving something to manage, like
resource.
You're managing that. When
Mm-hmm.
you're leading, as I said earlier, from Maxwell's perspective, there's 7 layers of leadership, and so the base level is position. So you're in authority. I'm your supervisor. I say, this is what you got to produce, and this is a report you got to turn in, and all this kind of thing. So, hey, okay, great. You're my boss. I'm going to do those things. But there are people that are in organizations, they don't have a title, but they're able to influence people. They're able to lead them. And so the leadership is really about the ability to influence, as opposed to like, hey, I'm your manager, I'm your boss, I'm your supervisor, whatever term you want to use. It's really not about your position, but it's about how you support people.
So you're talking about the difference between informal and formal leadership. Formal leadership, you have the title. Informal leader, you have the talent, you have the wherewithal, you have the ability.
Absolutely.
And as an executive, well, as a COO, you are at an executive level, the so-called C-suite. So in your journey, how has that differed? And I guess that's the next question. What skills and mindset did you find that you needed at the different levels?
Right. So at this level, is the work that I get done through others. Like there are things that I'm like directly responsible for, and I'm going to do that task. But most of the other things, so I think the higher you go within an organization, you think that, okay, now I have more control. Actually, you're giving up control. The higher you go within an organization, I think effective leaders and efficient leaders, which is another point on here, that's what they do. They build systems and processes. You hire the right people. Again, I talk about my team now. They're experts. Like Kedrick Wright, Construction and Development Services, trained in architecture and construction. Chris Sally, who leads facility services, industrial management, lean strategies, continuous improvement. Jenny Arredondo, food service expert. Nathan Graff, transportation. Edward Romero around finance and procurement. So the team that I have is like, those are experts. So it's like, how do I support them? Like, what are the roadblocks in the organization that prevent them from winning every day? And so I think that's that's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And allowing them to grow in the organization, to grow and develop.
You didn't mention it, but you spoke about it, and that is servant leadership. If you want them to succeed every day, you put the pieces in place to ensure that they succeed. You serve their needs so that they can succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's the importance of mentoring and coaching?
Wow, that's critical because again, we don't know everything, and so really, it could serve multiple purposes. So one, if there's something that maybe a skill that you lack, or however, then a mentor or coach could be helpful or beneficial in a particular area to coach you through different situations. Um, Also, it's good when we just need someone to bounce something off. Like you may have had a bad day and thinking like the world's going to come to an end, but like a mentor, they may listen to you, but then give you some sound advice. They've traveled a path that maybe you haven't and have had success in particular areas that you haven't. But one of the key things as a mentee is to, or a person is receiving coaching is to be respectful of the mentor's time. And so when I meet with my mentors, I typically have like the things I want to talk about so we can be very succinct in the conversation. I'm going to make sure that if we're meeting at 6, I'm going to be 5:30. So really having a great appreciation. So it's not just some jibber jabber, but it's a meaningful meaningful dialogue.
Mm-hmm. So are you both a mentee and a mentor?
I am. I've had the good fortune to have some great mentors in my life. Shout out to Carl Sharperson, Sharp Leadership. He is someone that I've known. Gosh, I've known Carl for, I guess it's about 20 years now. But very successful, an executive within a manufacturing company, but then started his own consultancy.
Right.
Ron Stallings, and just a number of people. My father-in-law, Willie Washington, Sergeant Major, retired from the Army. So all of those people imparted into me, and as I had, decisions, various sorts of decisions, I was able to talk to them, whether it was about career.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my former pastors, Shelton Beatty in Houston,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Terry McCaskill in South Carolina, Delmar Jackson in Virginia. So all of those people poured into my life, and I was able to glean certain things from them. And so
So
whether
Willie,
it was
we have 2 minutes remaining.
2
Of
minutes, all
these
right.
2 topics we have remaining, which one do you want to hit?
Okay, go with whichever one is.
People don't leave organizations; people leave people. What does that mean?
Oh man, like that's a recent one, although it's not so new. So like my current boss, Dr. Robert Jacklish, that's something that he's said since he's been with the organization now about a couple of months, and it's true. And people may be more familiar with there being a statistic around where people typically, when they leave an organization, it's because of the relationship or the interaction that they have with their immediate supervisor. And so it's really the person not leaving that organization, but it's that relationship that exists. So again, the human connection. And so, I stole that from him. People don't leave organizations, people leave people. So shout out to Dr. J as it relates to.
So that's where the human connection also plays a part.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And that's why some people will follow others wherever they go because of the human connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Willie, we have a minute. What is
the
takeaway you want people to have?
Well, there's a few. So one, develop. I think one should develop the skills that are necessary for whatever level where they want to be. And it's too late to attempt to get the skill when the opportunity is there. And there's a saying that goes, I'd rather be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than have an opportunity and not be prepared. Because again, it's too late. And for anybody that reads some Bible stories, it's like the 5 wise and the 5 foolish version. When Jesus came, it was like, hey, they didn't have oil, so they were trying to go get some oil. It was too late. You couldn't go get oil. He was there. And so always be prepared.
Okay.
And without exception, always value people. And the last one is, and I tell my son this often, my youngest about to be 15 on Sunday, Ty Burroughs, shout out to him. And so the only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. So you got to put the work. You got to put the work in.
That's very good. Thank you, Willie. Well, we're coming to the end of our 30 minutes, and I would like to express my appreciation to Mr. Willie T. Burroughs of San Antonio ISD. And also I'd like to thank Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovation 360 Degrees. I'm David Johnson from Transform Education. And Willie, how should people get in touch with you?
I think it's on the slide here. My LinkedIn. You can connect with me that way. That's the best way. The other is my work email address. I prefer on the LinkedIn. I get lots of emails at work, so so yeah, my LinkedIn is the best way to get in contact with me.
All right. Well, thank you for being our guest tonight, and I enjoyed the conversation. And good night to all of our audience.
Thank you.